Good morning, friends. It is Froggy Friday, and I'm going to knock out that 660. Took me a little over 40 minutes last time, so I definitely got to get this time down a little bit and work on my frogging muscles. Well, while I'm knocking this out, go ahead and check out the next skill on the NCRC's skills checklist. Enjoy. Hello friends, today we're going to be passing knots. I'm going to do it with a full rack and a Petzl rig. Alright, let's see if I can do it. First method I'm going to demonstrate is passing a knot with a full rack. I personally carry a second lanyard with a hand ascender attached to it pretty much at all times. I can do some of these maneuvers without that, but I personally find it safer and easier if I carry another hand ascender. So when I approach something like this, I personally like to keep 2 points of attachment on the rope while I'm moving obstacles, because I've broken full-size devices doing other things. So for my personal well-being, I'm going to use my right hand ascender attached to my harness. Once that's clipped in, I'm going to move my left hand ascender with my foot loop up past that knot. I'm going to go ahead and climb up closer to the knot. I'm going to get my lanyard in a nice position that allows me to make this step easily and comfortably. Before I step, I make sure the top of my harness is sucked down real tight. I also have my hand on the gate of the crawl, ready to open it as soon as I step up. When I open it up, I'm going to take it off the rope and immediately reinstall it above the knot. I reach up nice and high, crawl is open, pass the knot, close the crawl, sit back down. I had 2 points of attachment there, just in case I were to miss that maneuver and I were to fall onto my left hand ascender. I would have had my right hand ascender as a backup and also to mitigate how far I'm falling. Now that I'm past the knot, I just climb on. Okay, on the way down, when my hand hits the knot right about at my hip, I like to stop and I go ahead and I tie off my rack. I'm tied off. Since I carry this right hand ascender, I'm going to go ahead and clip it on above my rack, and then I'm going to take my left hand ascender with my foot loop. I'm going to clip that on below my right hand ascender. Once that's done, I'm going to go ahead and rappel down so that I weight my right hand ascender, and you'll have to do a judgment call of where you want this to end so that you can go ahead and pass your rack past the knot. Looks like I got it pretty good there. I have my 2 points of attachment, and that's why I'm going to go ahead and take this off. What I did realize is I'm going to go ahead and move my rack past my right hand ascender, and now my rack is sitting between the crawl and my right hand ascender. Fun little happy mistake there, because it showed that you still can do this maneuver, with your gear set up in different ways. But if you have it set up with all of your devices, if I'm looking down at it, to the left of the crawl, with the rack closest to the crawl, it allows, when you do these changeovers, for all of your gear to pass away from you to your left side. And that way, when you go to move your devices like this, it keeps your descender in an area that it makes it much more applicable for my way of doing things to get it onto the rack. Okay, now that I've tied that off, I'm going to get my hand ascender closer to the rack here so that it doesn't become overly tensioned. I'm going to stand up and remove my right hand ascender. Oh, that's why you want to make sure that you keep your hand ascender in an appropriate distance. But it's not a big deal. Since I did that, I'm going to step up, put my right hand ascender back on the rope. Now I'm going to move my left hand ascender down a little bit closer to that knot. And now when I go ahead and make this change over here, I will have all my weight on the descender. There you go. You got to see two little happy mistakes. Now I need to make sure that I function test my descender. Again, don't want to weight this lanyard, so I move it as close to the knot as appropriate for me. I'm going to go ahead and let about 2 inches slide through the rack. Perfect. I'm going to go ahead and remove my left hand ascender. I've always kept control on the tail end of this rope while doing that. That's why I didn't fully lock off. And now I'm ready to descend down the rope. Also, good practice. You get to see all the little mistakes today. It's best practice to close this curl immediately when you're doing different maneuvers, because it's very easy for the curl to get stuck on a carabiner or your rack bar. It catches on anything you don't want it to. So you saw a couple mistakes in this one, and I'm going to leave that in the video so you can see generally what kind of happens when you do passing maneuvers and how you kind of can get a little hung up in places. But as you saw, there's always a way, if you stay calm, that you can work your way through a mistake or a hiccup. All right, let's do it with a Petzl rig. All right, let's pass the knot using a Petzl rig. All right, I came on up. I encountered my knot. Since I always carry this other hand ascender, I'm going to go ahead and install my right hand ascender on above the knot. I'm going to go ahead and climb up closer to the knot here. And now I'm going to move my left hand ascender above the knot. There's my 2 points of attachment. I'm going to get my ascenders up nice and high, reach up above that, and as I stand up, I'm going to open up the gate of the curl, pass the knot, and close the gate. All right, since I got my 2 points of attachment, I'm going to go ahead and take that right hand ascender off. And I'm going to climb on. All right, now I'm descending down on the Petzl rig. When using this device, I like to propel down until the knot is about a hand's width away from my device. Once I'm there, I'm going to go ahead and install my left hand ascender with a foot loop. I'm going to go ahead and step up and install my curl onto the rope. I'm going to get the gate open already, get my hand ascender up, reach up nice and high, stand up, install the curl onto the main line, and now I can remove the descender. I left just enough room to give myself enough slack to open up the device, remove the rope, and then reinstall immediately below the knot. And now I'm going to down climb to the knot. And this is why it's important to be able to down climb very efficiently. Once I'm close to that knot, I'm going to move my hand ascender so that when I go ahead and do the changeover, that I don't get this lanyard tensioned. I'm going to reach up, open the scroll, close the scroll immediately, and sit down onto the descender. Now that the descender is there, I'm going to move my hand ascender close to the knot so that I can perform my safety check. I'm going to function test the descender. I moved about 2-3 inches. The device is working appropriately. I'm going to go ahead and remove my hand ascender and finish my rappel. There we go. That's maneuvering through knots. Just take your time, perform your procedures, keep your 2 points of attachment, and you'll do great. The big thing with all of these maneuvers, as I've said before and will say again, practice, practice, practice. It's the only way that you're going to figure out what works best for you. And remember what I just demonstrated. It's just a method to do this. It is not the method. You need to come up with what works best for you while still following the manufacturer's recommended instructions. All right, have fun out there. All right, friends, here comes the end of the rope. Another 660 down on Froggy Friday. I hope you all enjoyed that footage. Here's for the dismount. Woo! All right, everybody. It's beautiful spring. I'm gonna work on that dismount a little bit more. Go do some push-ups, sit-ups, have a good walk, enjoy your day, and I'll see you all later.